At 2:47 p.m. on June 18, 1933, Frank Crowe heard the rumble. Not the usual thunder of dynamite echoing through Black Canyon. Not the constant drone of concrete mixers or the hiss of steam shovels clawing at Nevada rock. This was different, lower, mechanical, wrong. The chief engineer of Hoover Dam stood on the canyon rim, 600 vertical feet above the Colorado River, watching his army of 5,200 men transform one of the most hostile landscapes in America into the largest dam ever conceived. At 47 years old, Crowe had built dams from Montana to California. He knew every sound a construction site could make. And this sound, this grinding, metal-on-metal shriek cutting through the 120-degree heat, meant someone was about to die. 3 seconds later, a 20-ton Caterpillar RD-8 bulldozer pitched forward over the edge of the upper cofferdam. Operator James "Jimmy" Sullivan had exactly enough time to understand what was happening before the machine, its blade, still lowered, began its descent into the canyon. The next 72 hours would become the most controversial incident in Hoover Dam's construction, not because of the death toll, not because of the mechanical failure, but because of what 6 Companies, Inc., the consortium building the dam, did to make sure the world never found out exactly what happened on that June afternoon. Sullivan was 31, former coal miner from Scranton, Pennsylvania, married with 2 kids. He'd been operating heavy equipment on the dam site for 14 months, earning the standard wage of $4 per day plus 50 cents hazard pay. Premium rates for men willing to work in temperatures that regularly exceeded 115 degrees, where the heat radiating off the canyon walls could melt the soles off work boots. The RD-8 was cutting a new access road along the Arizona side cofferdam when the collapse started. Not the cofferdam itself. That 2-story temporary earthen dam was holding back millions of gallons of Colorado River water without problem. The collapse was in the makeshift ramp system Crowe's engineers had built to move equipment up and down the canyon walls. These ramps weren't engineered structures. They were expedient solutions, piled earth and loose rock held together by timber bracing and hope. Speed was everything. President Herbert Hoover wanted this dam built fast, a monument to American engineering during the Depression, proof the government could put thousands of unemployed men to work on something that mattered. The contract specified completion in 7 years. Crowe had promised 5. When you move that fast, things get overlooked. The ramp supporting Sullivan's bulldozer had been built in April, constructed from excavation spoil mixed with blast debris. The timber cribbing underneath was ponderosa pine, cut from the mountains north of Vegas, treated with nothing more than used motor oil to prevent rot. 2 months in 120-degree heat. 2 months of 20-ton machines driving across it multiple times per day. 2 months of the wood drying out, shrinking, developing hairline cracks that no one could see and no one thought to check. When the cribbing failed, it didn't snap. It compressed. Slowly at first, just an inch or 2, but enough to tilt the bulldozer's center of gravity forward. Sullivan felt it immediately. He throttled down, tried to reverse. The RD-8's track spun, clawing at the disintegrating surface. Then the whole section gave way. 20 tons of Caterpillar bulldozer, fuel tank full, blade extended, began falling toward the riverbed 600 feet below. Sullivan jumped. He had maybe half a second to make that decision. His body was found 80 feet down the canyon wall, wedged between 2 boulders. Medical examiner later said he likely died on impact, multiple fractures, internal hemorrhaging. Quick, at least. The bulldozer tumbled end over end, breaking apart as it fell. The blade separated first, spinning away like a massive steel frisbee. The engine block tore loose at 400 feet. The fuel tank ruptured, diesel mist trailing behind like a comet tail. By the time the main chassis hit the riverbed, it was barely recognizable as machinery. But Sullivan wasn't alone on that ramp. If you want to see how Frank Crowe tried to contain what happened next, please hit that like button. It helps us share more forgotten stories. Subscribe if you haven't already. Back to Black Canyon. Two other men were working near Sullivan when the collapse started. Mickey Chen, a Chinese-American laborer from San Francisco, was standing 15 feet behind the bulldozer, hauling water to men working further up the ramp. And Thomas Beckworth, a 23-year-old powder monkey from Oklahoma, was climbing up from below, carrying a wooden crate of dynamite. When the ramp section failed, it didn't collapse uniformly. It peeled away from the canyon wall like wet cardboard, falling in segments. Chen tried to run uphill back toward stable ground. He made it 6 steps before the earth beneath him liquefied. He went down with the second segment, approximately 3 tons of loose rock and timber. His body wasn't recovered for 11 hours, buried under debris at the canyon base. Beckworth had different problems. He was still on the lower portion of the ramp when the upper section came down. 20 tons of bulldozer plus several tons of earth and timber, all avalanching directly toward him. He dropped the dynamite crate and tried to climb perpendicular away from the fall line. Almost made it. A spinning piece of bulldozer track, 8 feet long, probably 300 pounds, caught him across the shoulders, drove him face first into the canyon wall, then pinned him there as the debris piled up around him. The dynamite crate he dropped exploded on impact with the rocks below. Not a massive explosion, just 50 pounds of gelignite, but enough to shower the entire lower canyon with shrapnel and ignite the diesel fuel from the bulldozer's ruptured tank. Within seconds, a pillar of black smoke rose 600 feet, visible from the dam site's administrative buildings 3 miles away. Frank Crowe reached the scene 9 minutes after the initial collapse. He'd scrambled down the access tunnel on the Nevada side, emerged onto a maintenance platform, and could see the entire disaster zone. The burning wreckage, the debris field, the broken timber jutting from the canyon wall like shattered bones, and the bodies, or what was left of them. Standard procedure required immediately stopping all work, cordoning off the area, documenting the scene, and notifying federal safety inspectors. The Bureau of Reclamation had oversight authority. The Nevada Industrial Commission had jurisdiction. Proper protocol demanded investigation before any cleanup. Crowe made a different decision. He ordered immediate debris removal. Full work crews right then, despite the fire still burning. His reasoning was sound from a construction standpoint. The collapsed ramp was blocking access to the entire Arizona side Hoover Dam work. Every hour of delay meant falling further behind schedule, and schedule meant everything. 6 Companies, Inc. had penalty clauses in their contract, $50,000 per day for late completion. But they also had massive bonuses for early completion, $3 million if they finished by March 1936. So the bodies were extracted, the wreckage was cleared, and the ramp was rebuilt within 48 hours. By June 21st, bulldozers were running again on the same route over the same spot where 3 men had died. But here's where it gets complicated. The official death toll at Hoover Dam, as recorded by 6 Companies, Inc. and the Bureau of Reclamation, lists 96 fatalities over the entire 5-year construction period. This number has been repeated in every documentary, every history book, every official account of the dam's construction. It includes Sullivan, Chen, and Beckworth, listed as June 18, 1933 construction accident. Multiple fatalities. What it doesn't include are the 12 other men who died in the 72 hours following the initial collapse. 4 men suffered severe burns from the diesel fire and died of their injuries within the next 3 days. 2 at the makeshift site hospital, 2 after being transported to Las Vegas. 3 men developed heat stroke during the emergency debris removal operation and didn't survive. 2 men died in a secondary collapse when the hastily rebuilt ramp failed again on June 20th. And 3 men, this is where the documentation gets deliberately vague, simply disappeared from the employment rolls between June 18th and June 21st. No death certificates, no hospital records, no next of kin notifications. Just gone. The Chinese workers kept their own records. Their mutual aid societies documented every member, tracked deaths, arranged for remains to be sent home. According to records maintained by the San Francisco Benevolent Association, 18 Chinese workers died at Hoover Dam during construction. The official 6 companies count lists 8. That's a discrepancy of 10 bodies. The same pattern appears in the records kept by the Oklahoma Workers Collective, an informal association of Dust Bowl refugees who'd migrated west for dam jobs. They documented 37 deaths among their members. Official count, 19. Frank Crowe wasn't a villain. He was an engineer under impossible pressure, building an unprecedented structure on an insane timeline with Depression-era safety standards that would be considered criminally negligent today. He didn't decide to hide deaths out of malice. He did it because accurate reporting would have triggered federal investigations, work stoppages, safety reviews, delays that would have cost 6 companies Inc. millions and destroyed his reputation as the fastest dam builder in America. So bodies got listed as left the project instead of deceased. Workers who died off-site after being transported away from the dam didn't get counted in the official tally. Men who disappeared into the Colorado River, swept away during Hoover Dam work, drowned in underwater concrete pours, got marked as missing indefinitely. The death toll stayed manageable. Officially, Thomas Beckworth's mother received a telegram on June 23, 1933. It said her son had been killed in a construction accident. It did not say he'd been crushed by a bulldozer track. It did not mention the 11 hours his body remained pinned against the canyon wall while crews worked around him to clear more valuable equipment. It did not explain why his coffin arrived in Oklahoma sealed with instructions not to open it. Mickey Chin's wife received $800. Standard death compensation, 200 days' wages. No explanation of how her husband died. No ability to verify the body. 6 companies shipped back to San Francisco was actually her husband, given the condition it was in after being buried under 3 tons of rock for 11 hours. James Sullivan's widow received the same $800 plus an additional $1,000 payment marked as discretionary compensation. The extra money came with a document she had to sign, acknowledging receipt and agreeing not to pursue any legal action against 6 Companies Inc. or any of its contractor partners. She signed. She had 2 kids to feed and no job prospects in Depression-era Pennsylvania. The rebuilt ramp lasted 6 months before Frank Crowe ordered it permanently closed and had his engineers design a proper switchback road system with concrete foundations and steel reinforcement. By then, it didn't matter. The damage was done. The precedent was set. For the rest of the construction period, incident reporting became flexible. Hoover Dam was completed in March 1936, 2 years ahead of schedule. Total official cost, $49 million. Total official death count, 96. Total unofficial death count based on cross-referencing union records, mutual aid society documentation, and family testimonies. Somewhere between 140 and 170. Frank Crowe received a bonus of $350,000. He used it to start his own construction company and went on to build Shasta Dam in California. He died in 1946, age 59, still celebrated as one of America's greatest engineers. His obituary in the New York Times mentioned his incredible safety record at Hoover Dam, noting the remarkably low death toll of 96 men over 5 years of dangerous construction. The bulldozer, what was left of it, was buried in the canyon fill below the dam's foundation. It's still there, along with sections of the collapsed ramp, pieces of timber cribbing, and likely fragments of the 3 men who died in that initial collapse. All of it entombed in concrete, thousands of cubic yards poured over the site, forever part of the structure. There's no plaque, no memorial. The official Hoover Dam Museum mentions the 96 deaths in passing, a single paragraph noting the inherent dangers of Depression-era construction. The June 18th incident doesn't warrant specific mention, just another day on the project. But the families remember. Descendants of Chinese workers still make pilgrimages to the dam, burning incense at the Colorado River's edge, honoring ancestors whose deaths were never properly acknowledged. Oklahoma family historians maintain lists of Dust Bowl workers who went west and never came home, their fates uncertain, their sacrifices unrecorded. Hoover Dam stands as a monument to American engineering, a Depression-era triumph, a structure that transformed the Southwest. It generates 4 billion kilowatt hours of electricity annually. It irrigates 1 million acres of farmland. It provides water to 25 million people. It's a masterpiece. It's also a tomb built on concealed deaths and manipulated records, an achievement made possible by men whose names aren't carved in the memorial plaques, whose families never got the full truth, whose bodies were sometimes quite literally buried in the foundation of American progress. The Colorado River still flows through Black Canyon. The dam still stands, and 600 feet below the crest, entombed in concrete, a Caterpillar RD-8 bulldozer rests where it fell 93 years ago, along with the truth about what really happened in those 72 hours of hell. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe. Your support helps us preserve these histories. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from.